Welcome, everybody, to the Marketeers Clubhouse. I am Jamie Kalon. Today, I've got Alex Langevin, one of my co-hosts from Montreal, Quebec, in the house. And welcome, Alex, into the studio today.
Thank you.
Nice. Always good to have my buddy back. I put a motocross helmet in the background of my shot today, just as honoring Alex because he was a pro motocross racer. So I thought I'd do that. That's my Jeremy McGrath signed Troy Lee one. So I thought you'd appreciate that. Today we've got Hubert Richard, and I don't exactly understand what Hubert does for work. He runs this very large machine. It's an agency. It's called Agency Effects or Effects Partnerships. I'm not even exactly 100% sure. But you're charged and you're the exclusive partnership and marketing company for the CH Group, which is the Canadian Habs Group, which includes the Montreal Canadiens, an original 6 NHL hockey team where there's enough responsibility and weight on that alone because you have to do a good job and do it. And you're also in charge of marketing for Evenko, which is under the CH banner, as far as I understand, does events, music, comedy, and other things at the Bell Center and outside of the Bell Center. I've said it a bunch of times. I'm a bit of an idiot. I don't exactly understand. I'm really good at selling sunglasses and shoes and t-shirts and stuff. And when it comes to some of the other types of marketing, I'm just out there exploring, trying to understand how these promotions work and how these things happen. So today I'm going to sit in the back seat and I'm going to let you instruct me and teach me on how this works in such a large machine, because you have this giant facility and you've got these giant properties in the hockey team and in the events company. So welcome. Please, I'm getting it right. Hubert, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Silent
Yes.
H in French.
Yes. And it's Alex Langevin. I can mispronounce Alex's name 1,000 times over.
Yeah.
So give me a little brief history of what you do, the properties you're marketing for, and then we can dive into the weeds. I'm going to have 1,000 questions that are going to come up again because I'm curious, but I'm a curious idiot. So let's jump in.
Well, thanks for having me, and it's always fun to see Alex. I've been working with Alex for close to 20 years, which pretty much tells you about our age. So I've been with I've been running ethics for 15 years. I've been here 20 over, and before that I was with the Expo. So that's pretty much the extent of my career. It's pro sports in Montreal. Period.
Amazing.
I started as a student, delivering beer at night between baseball games in the fall of 80 something, I was there for about 12 years, and now with the FX for over 21. Entrepreneurial. I always had a couple of other businesses here and there, investments, but I found my place here because I have the extreme luck of representing the greatest property in Canada, I think, and own my company doing it, right? So
yeah,
that's amazing. That unfortunately is coming to an end, so we're not going to be an agency anymore for the Canadians because after 35 years they decided to internalize this service, and we were the only agency in the world. I never found another pro sport team that had an external sales force, and sponsorship is a huge part of the revenues and even more of the profits of a pro sports team. To put that payroll on the ice or on the field, right? So we're talking about close to 90 millions US of payroll. So at the end of the day, that's a big a big focus of the teams, and they wanted to internalize. Good part is they really wanted to keep the stakeholders of ethics. So all my teams has transferred in, and the two partners, myself and Luigi, are becoming SVPs of the organization starting July 1st. All right, so
Wow.
that's literally handling sponsorship, all advertising on the ring boards to promotional rights usage in the market. And Alex could tell you how painful we can be if people are using the brand, because that's all about protecting it and monetizing it. And we have obviously exclusive partners in most key categories that expect us to protect their association with our club. So that's always been the biggest mandate. And the origin of FX is actually my former partner François Xavier Seigneur. So FX are the initials of his first name, François Xavier, and EFFIX came from there. And
Right.
François was the former marketing and communications VP of the Canadiens.
Hmm.
And in '86, he asked the president to start this business when sponsorship was not even, I'm sure it was not even 2% of the revenues of the team back then. Ring boards were still white in most markets. The league had accepted that markets start to do ring boards advertising, but old forum, old scoreboard, no ring boards, like assets were close to none, revenues were close to none. So François started this from scratch and built it to what it became today. One thing that's really interesting, I don't know if Alex even knows about it. When the ring boards happened, the Maple Leafs that are very traditional didn't want to do advertising on the ring boards, and they resisted. And Molson, the brewery, the Canadiens are owned by Molson, and they've been owned by Molson many generations. And Molson wanted to be on the ring boards in Toronto, just like they were in Montreal. So they pushed on the Leafs to a point that they acquired all of their inventory. They said, "You guys don't want to, bother selling them? Sell them all to us." So Molson, who had an entertainment division called Molstar, bought all the Leafs inventory, turned around, came to FX, and mandated us for 7 years to sell both Montreal Forum and Garden in Toronto.
Wow.
On all the ring boards.
That's amazing. Just so
Crazy,
for people that aren't hockey fans, people listening from all over the place, hockey's surrounded, we've all seen it. There's boards all the way around the ice surface. And back in the day, those boards were just white. And obviously it's nothing but a giant opportunity to throw a bunch of logos up. And the modern version of that, which I'd love to talk to you about, technically they're being done quite differently on TV now, and everything is very cool. The finding value in when Hubert is talking about inventory, he's talking about marketing asset, like spaces that are available for marketing activation, whether it's a wall that can be wrapped, whether it's the boards, or whether it's the power ring that surrounds that sort of upper tier in a lot of stadiums. That's all inventory. In fact, inventory could be the fronts of the stairs as you're walking up is inventory, and there's just marketing opportunity after marketing opportunity. So you guys are moving through that. You guys have been charged with you've been connected to one of the greatest companies ever to come out of Canada, Molson's, which is amazing. God bless them. They make a great product. It's a good company. They have owned the hockey team in Montreal forever, basically, and have kept it so pure from the Guy Lafleur era all the way through. It is like a shining jewel of Canadian sports, and it's amazing. So,
but if I may, just to finish on FX, so FX still exists for the other mandates that we have. So I kept a part of my team on the other mandates, including the major one being the President's Cup PGA event coming to Montreal in the fall 24. In that case, we do marketing, but we all local rights actually, because President's Cup is a bit of the Olympics of golf, so you don't do global sponsorship locally, right? We're like hosting a local event in this case, so the global partners are negotiated by PGA World, but so we're going to be doing local deals, and the most part of our mandate is really the hospitality asset, so huge tents and various accesses to that event. So that's one of our major mandates. And we also work with the international fireworks competition in Montreal and City of Montreal and other mandates that we do with them. So to explain, so FX was always an advertising sales agency, but in the non-traditional world, like entertainment, sports, it's not like the billboards, the radio spots, the TV spots. So getting brands to invest in the live events, that's our specialty. And it's important to understand. I would consider ourselves more a sales agency than a marketing agency, because we would work with the brand's marketing agencies in the activation of their partnerships. So call us a broker that creates value between brands and properties that are non-traditional media properties, i.e., live events for most part.
Well said.
Yeah, that clears a bunch of stuff up. So you sit sort of at the intersection of sales and marketing, 100%, because you are selling all the marketing bits that can exist within these opportunities. I can only imagine through all the different things you do, it's so like a rock concert is inherently different than early season hockey game, which an early season hockey game is definitively different than a playoff game, which unfortunately you guys aren't seeing this year. Either are the Calgary Flames. It's part of hockey. Your season just ended night before.
Last night was our last game.
Yeah, shame on Canadian
we put
hockey
some
teams.
Heat on the Bruins. We didn't beat them, but we scared them for sure.
You scared them right into the playoffs. So everything is so different. How do you I don't know. I have like a billion questions because I'm a logistical human, and I've created a marketing platform that helps manage marketing inventory. That's one of my specialties in this world. And shame on Alex for not selling you our system. Shame, Alex. You should be hard pressing him to buy Regulator. But your assets are interchangeable, and they have to be changed quickly. The infrastructure to be able to change a wall wrap from a hockey game to an opportunity like a concert or an MMA or Stars on Ice. Like there'd be 1,000 different things that pour through and utilize this inventory. How do you guys logistically keep your head around this?
Oh, very, very interesting question. So let me just take a little step back on the entertainment factor. So sports, we own the hockey team, right? So you own the assets, and you have 41 regular season home games. You have the 4 preseasons. You have your playoffs. You have those ring boards. You have TV ratings. The infrastructure of a sports organization is way more defined, and as much, obviously it generates recurring revenues, right? Versus the entertainment is like tours come and go. So what really created value for the group is creating our own events, which are festivals here in Montreal, right? So with CH Group, you mentioned earlier that we were handling that. So a bit of a clarification there is we're assisting a team that is dedicated to entertainment that comes from the integration of Spectra in the Evenko division. Evenko being our entertainment division, right, of the CH Group. So CH Group has the Montreal Canadiens, the Laval Rocket, American League team, and then we have 3 facilities: the training facility in Brossard called Complexe Sportif Bell, the American League team's building in Laval called Place Bell, and then the Montreal Canadiens Centre Bell. So you can understand that Bell is the second, very big brand partner and owner, actually, as Jeff Molson is. And Jeff Molson is the president of the team, right? So we talked about the brand and the brewery, but Jeff Molson also owns and manages the organization, the CH Group. So back to the entertainment division. Entertainment, when it comes to big tours, is like a wedding venue that rents the building. The rights are close to none at the team or at the buildings level. The rights belong to the artist, and they belong to the tour managers, i.e., most of the time, Live Nation. And Live Nation is also an owner of the entertainment division of the CH Group. So
Hmm.
Live Nation owns half of the division of the entertainment division, and they control ticket. They own Ticketmaster, and they own most of the tours around the world is managed by Live Nation. So they're a very strategic partner, but still not that easy to monetize at the partnership level when you're talking about global tours, because it's simply not owned by the local companies. It's really owned by the artists themselves and their agents all the way to Live Nation that sometimes could do more coast to coast partnerships potentially around music. But you gotta go to all of the artists. You can't sell a Live Nation year round. You're going to be getting accesses, promotional rights to artists. That just does not work that way, right? So the entertainment industry is not as structured to it's not as well structured as sports, if I could put it this way, to monetize this part of their opportunity, right? So they sell tickets, they do a great job. Ticketmaster, the dynamic pricing that came in play lately. They do an amazing job in monetizing that way. But on the sponsorship and advertising and marketing side, I think there's a lot of things that we could improve. That being said, at our level, having our own festivals, which we own, and created brands, is where we created value to sponsors. The greatest one being Osheaga. For listeners that are maybe out west or in the U.S., I'm not shy to say that it is the Canadian Coachella, literally. And Osheaga resonates
Amazing.
across the country. Jamie, maybe you could echo to that. You're out west,
Yeah.
and all the kids across the country, if you ask them, you want to come to Osheaga and you want to fly them in, they're going to probably participate to your promotion, right? So we created a truly national brand with Osheaga, which allows us to, create partnerships with companies that are looking to connect with this generation of new consumers in a very cool way. And it's a village that's literally built for a weekend here in Montreal, early August. And we have two more festivals that are right after Osheaga. One is EDM, more called IleSoniq, and the third one that we created last year is Lasso Country, Lasso. So those three festivals, we can go to the market and sell the festival. Obviously, the brands would want to know who are going to be the artists performing, but there's still a big chunk of the value associated to the festival itself, the attendance it drives, the social medias, the CRM, right? You have this audience that you can engage. So we can create properties, and you stop me if it's too much of a sales pitch, but you can create solutions that are over many weeks promotionally leading into these events and even after the event again on the digital platforms. So that's very exciting, and that's something that Osheaga has been around, like I think it's 15th or 16th year,
Hmm.
and the two others are a bit young. Lasso is second year. We got a bit, I think something called COVID delayed some of our initiatives, but
I bet it did.
and so yeah, so on the entertainment side, we have a specialist team that comes from the fact that Spectra, I mentioned it earlier, was integrated in the Evenko CH Group Entertainment. Spectra initially owned Jazz Festival in Montreal, Francophonie, which is around francophone music, but with a global reach in the francophone countries.
Yeah.
And the third one is Winter Times. It's called Montréal en Lumière, Montreal in Lights. So it's basically creating an event outdoors, right in the heart of the very cold Canadian winter, and we turned it into a very cool festival in the heart of the city. And we also have a foodie dimension in restaurants across the greater Montreal. So another very nice event. So we have like these 6 festivals that we drive, produce, and sell that creates that value for the Montreal market. And I think it contributed to positioning Montreal as one of the leaders around the world in partnerships. There's so many great events here. Jazz is probably the biggest international jazz festival in the world. You have Canadians, obviously, that are renowned around the world as the one of the original 6 hockey teams, as you mentioned. And these other festivals that are Osheaga is resonating certainly across the country and even abroad. So we have, that's where the value is created on the entertainment side, Jamie. And just to finish on the Bell Center, historically, the assets were sold for the Canadians, being the main event taking place here.
For sure.
But with the arrival of the digital properties in the Bell Center, all these we call the arena visions that are LED boards that go all the way around the stands, and then the scoreboard that sometimes could be used in events, rarely in concerts. It's pulled in the ceiling, but so those electronic assets all of a sudden now are sold for concerts through a Live Nation coast to coast approach. They go to brands and propose to be present during the Live Nation events taking place in all of the venues across the country. So one of the examples of the evolution of opportunities in the entertainment is those electronic signage in the playing area. But it's still pretty tough to create like assets that would. One thing that we're trying to sell here in Montreal, and we're very close with a couple of brands, is the floor. So floor is only used for concerts, right?
Right.
During games, it's the ice rink. So during concerts, we call it the floor. So we're trying to create this sponsorship where you could brand the floor, brand the seats on the floor. We even use the players' benches and make him VIP areas because it's a box, right? So
Totally.
You're right there, right next to that. For the Canadiens bench, for instance, our team's bench, you would be about 20 or 50 feet from the stage. A bit less. So that creates a VIP area, and then we have lounges in the back. So we try to create properties around the entertainment, events, but the concerts mainly. But it's a challenge compared to what we can do with the hockey club.
Does your brand need some help in the trade marketing department? Manage your sales tools with Regulator's easy-to-use features. Whether it's fixtures or displays, POP, custom art or promo products, you can submit single or bulk orders for all your locations within minutes, using a simple, streamlined process. Deliver content, manage your budget and view the market, all from the palm of your hand. Move up to 10 times faster than your competitors and capture all the opportunities that put your brand on top. Visit brandregulator.com for more information.
Yeah, speaking about the hockey club, when, like, I'm assuming, and I don't know the answer, so this is a question, not anything past that, because I literally don't know. You would have a local broadcast, and you guys potentially would have different advertising that exists in your local broadcast, and then you'd have your national level. And in a lot of instances, original 6 teams do end up inordinately getting more primetime space because they've got a larger fan base. So the NHL puts them in generally decent time periods, and they get lots of broadcast time. So do you guys, when you guys were selling these properties, were you selling some like local stuff that goes to the local broadcast, very, Montreal specific style stuff versus the national stuff? Are you involved in selling some of the national properties on those big events when they go to TV, or is this right out of your guys' world?
Okay, so first of all, just to make sure that the level of details that I've given you on the last question, is it too deep or too long? Like, I just want to adjust to make sure that I'm not boring your audience.
No, it's good, dude.
Because this question has a very long answer too, right? So
yeah, these are marketing people in a lot of instances that are probably don't understand how this level of sales and promotion of this inventory works. And to me, it's confusing as hell.
All right, all
Because
right. So yeah, so TV. First of all, you mentioned it briefly earlier. We introduced this year the what we call digitally enhanced dashboards, which is very technical name for being able to switch ringboards advertisers virtually.
Mhm.
So this technology is literally amazing. It creates the possibility to switch advertisers to animate the ring boards, all that during play. So that means players skating in front of your brand and real time without the eye, you know, realizing, adapting the logos so that the player doesn't is not like hidden by it, right? Because it's kind of overlaid. So that comes from the main camera feed, which is 80% of a hockey game is filmed from the main camera field, which is a
correct.
central camera
Yeah.
that swaps from left to right to follow the game, right? And again, I'm being very detailed here because I understand that some people are not really into hockey. So you don't realize if you don't work in this industry that there's one camera that's really doing most of the job. And if you were to switch sides, the game would change side on TV. So you
Yeah.
can't have cameras on the other side. So you have this main camera that films from left to right, and then you have secondary cameras in the net, lower when you have replays around the nets mainly, and those would not have the overlaid advertising. So 20% of the time you still see the now ring boards that are in the building. So we still do the boards in the building, which are 10 feet wide, 3 feet high.
And
We have
those
24.
have a branded graphic for in the building.
This is
Exactly.
the
So that's
Okay.
live
literally,
consumer.
it's a static brand that's literally stuck to the boards. We have 24 camera visible in assets,
Sure.
or sorry, boards. And we have the players' benches that we brand as well, right? So
Right.
all these camera visible assets are still done traditionally, in the building, which would count for 20% of your camera exposure and 100% of in-building visibility.
Right.
So we have one, if not the one of the biggest arenas in NHL, and we are 21,000 seats. Nothing
Right.
comparable to baseball or football, but so it's not that many people that you reach in the building. TV ratings for the Canadiens or the Maple Leafs or the Rangers, we're talking over 1 million a game. And one thing that's very particular that I think is interesting for marketers from other markets, especially the U.S. Hockey in Canada is a religion. If you compare it to any other sports in
Totally.
Canada, it's like 10 to 1, I would say, in the in the interest and level, and compared to the offering in the U.S., we are very concentrated. So the audiences of hockey are extremely high. So if you talk in points for media specialists, 10% of the population of Quebec, on average, watches a regular hockey game, not a playoff game, a regular season game. Okay, so hockey ratings in Canada compared to the Super Bowl in the U.S. If you talk ratio,
For sure.
so it's astronomical. So the physical visibility in the buildings is a very very minimal part of the value. Brands are buying the TV exposure and social media exposure on the boards. So back to DED. This is on the main camera, as I said. So it's managed through the league. The broadcasters have a deal. So the league handled this part. One thing that's important to understand is all camera visible assets are fully managed and controlled by the league. Any of our advertisers that has a camera visible asset has a clause in its contract that says that is a privilege that the NHL could take back anytime. Okay, so the league controls the main assets, and when the league came and the league is owned by the teams, right? So ultimately, it's the teams creating a league that is strong and that has value. And again, basics in sports, but you need 32 healthy teams to have a healthy league. And again, hockey in Canada is extremely popular compared to some markets in the US where they're fighting against MLB, NBA, NFL, university sports, right? So in lots of markets, especially in the US,
Yeah.
have a harder time, let's say, than we have up here in Canada. And so rev share is in place, caps, salary caps, right? So all these measures, and one of those is the league controlling the TV assets. So
So are they controlling those kind of like the NFL does? NFL is always just sort of image, trying to make sure that they're always perfect for their consumer. It's like squeaky clean. Is the NHL, are they like they're holding those tight? One, because they're valuable. Two, they're the things that get seen during their broadcasts with their teams. Are they doing it as a protectionist thing? So if like brand X gets outed for being really environmentally terrible, that they can quickly scrub them without a contractual issue? Is that kind of the logic behind it?
no, you know what? That's a good point you're bringing. I never saw it that way. Obviously, that would give you that possibility, and we have in our local contracts. Forget the league controlling TV assets. Any of the team's partners in our contracts, it says that if they have a very bad image because of X, Y, Z, we have the right to pull from the partnership anytime, right? So,
Right.
and vice versa. Some brands would also tell the teams that they would want to pull if ever the team has a reputation issue. No, it's really about making sure that this game is controlled at the league level, right? From an experience standpoint. You keep in mind if you're watching a game on TV and if it was to be controlled locally, every game would be different, every experience would be different. So the league is trying to create a uniformized, I guess, experience, first of all. Secondly, the league is trying to create value at the league level. You mentioned the NFL, it's the best example. You don't have any camera visible assets in an NFL game,
Yeah.
zero signage on the field or whatnot. The NFL has the chance of having humongous TV rights deals. They split that across the league, the league and teams, and everybody's making a lot of money, and they don't have to do uh, physical or local TV exposure. Like the teams are
Totally.
all happy with this national or league approach. NHL is probably at the other spectrum. It's the biggest teams that generate the biggest revenues for the league at the local level. New York, Montreal, Toronto, and sorry for the other guys I didn't name here. We have obviously a lot of the teams that drive revenues, but it's a bit it's extremes more than in other leagues. So it was very important for the league to come up with a program, a model that just that strengthens the weaker teams, so that we're able to grow this league as a whole. That was more the vision, I think, behind this. So the league controls TV camera visibility. The league decided to implement DED everywhere. Like it's not the teams that decided to do it or not. Every team has to do it. You have no choice. This is dealt between the league and the broadcasters. Your initial questions, I'm sorry, it took me quite a long time to get there. You have the national deals and you have the local deals in the NHL. So the national deals, 22 of our 82 games are owned by the league and negotiated by the league with the broadcasters. Here in
The
Canada,
individual games.
yes.
So the heavily broadcasted games are owned. The property is all owned by the NHL
Yes,
at that
when
point.
you say heavily broadcasted, it's 22, and they usually would do the Saturday nights. Yeah, so it's probably they have first rights, so they pick the 22 games before we have the remainder 60 games that are sold at the local level. So in our case in Canada, Sportsnet owns the league rights. So Sportsnet has 22 games of all the NHL teams in Canada,
Hmm.
and and then the teams negotiate local deals. In our case, RDS, the French TSN,
Mm-hmm.
and TSN own the Canadiens' rights, so the local rights for 60 of the 82 games.
Hmm.
But the DED is the same for both, right? Again, the league would impose that on every team. And it's a
Right.
league decision, voted by the governors, which is team owners. Once that passes, everybody has to follow, right? So we've got this whole DED that's in place, in whether it's a national deal or a regional deal. Now, what happens with advertising? This created humongous inventory. So the best example, I have 60 games on RDS at the local level. I was only able to sell half of those, which are my building games on the physical boards, right?
Sure.
Now I have 30 more games. When I'm playing away, it's literally the same advertisers on the DED, the virtual, that we have in Montreal. And then the national games, I have maybe half of the 22 that are in the Bell Center. The deal with the league is the local team keeps the inventory for a national game for the Canadian market. Wow. So if I play in Montreal, it's the Canadian advertisers, just like if I play on RDS in Montreal or I play on RDS in Columbus. So that's 60 plus 11 that the Canadians control. And then you have another 11 games that we would probably play at the national level in the US. When that happens, the league takes the inventory and sells it to the league sponsors. So that created interesting inventory at the league level. And obviously the league now all of a sudden can sell the Canadians games or any of the teams' games in all the other markets around the world. If you're in Germany, it's a pretty big hockey market.
Right.
You can sell the NHL games to German advertisers on German broadcast. So this is an amazing technology that maybe going to be tougher on signage companies and printing companies, right? But that created crazy inventory that cost nothing to switch from one market to the other. And as I said earlier, it can be animated. You can have an advertising message now. Right. So you're not about logos anymore. You could have a car that drives all across the ice during a play stoppage. We would not do that during play, obviously. But you could have a car that literally passes from left to right, opens the trunk, and if the federal laws allow, which is not the case in Canada, you could have an offering. We can't do that, by the way, because of the protection of the advertising content on TV. We could not do an offer like $2.99 a month, right? So on ring boards. But you could say on the Civic, you could say Ford Focus actually, which is our official partner.
And make sure you get it right
on the board.
That's amazing. So when just so everyone understands, if you've never been to an NHL game, back in the day, and I'm talking literally maybe 4 or 5 years ago, during stoppages, whether it's in between the periods or sometimes if there was a long TV break, there was physically signage companies. There's people coming out on the ice and swapping, like laying new graphics on the boards to do this switchover, which to be honest was hilarious. Sometimes it would just go really wrong and you'd be watching this and watching someone put it up and it's all crooked and it's a mess. They generally got pretty good at it really, really quick. But they went from this super manual process. Now, with that, do you guys still do a physical signage change on the boards between periods for the internal teams?
Yeah, very good question. So again, as I said, initially, this new technology is on the main camera. So 20% of the camera visibility is still in the building, which is not nothing. It's a pretty good chunk of inventory. So of reach. So we and again, this arrived before this season. We have a lot of sponsors, especially teams like Montreal that spend a lot of money on the camera visible properties. So we decided to concentrate on the migration. It was not about generating new revenues year one. It was about how do we migrate static ring boards to this new technology and make sure our partners are happy about it. And we came up with this model where we literally would do a conversion of periods of appearance and minutes of exposure. Okay, so and you have various ways to deliver the virtual, but what we decided to do, and we aligned all Canadian teams anyways did, so we collaborate a lot amongst the teams, and we decided to go to market with the same model because it's pretty much the same advertisers at the national level. And if you're coming with 7 different ways to sell this with the 7 Canadian teams, they would just all go crazy, right? So we aligned. And we decided to go to market with a model that has either 3 or 5 advertisers at the same time on the virtual, version. So again, 24 camera visible boards, 3 to 5 at the same time, rotating every 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
So we decided to say, okay, so a ring board per period is the equivalent of 3 minutes of exposure on the virtual per period. So if you're there in the first period, your traditional deal was 1 period per game.
Mm-hmm.
Then this game A, your period 1, your virtual will be period 1 for 3 minutes.
Mm.
And then back to your question, if we switch the ring board like we did in the past, and we still do it, to another advertiser for period 2, that advertiser gets 3 minutes in period 2. Because again, this was the first year we were not 100% certain of the quality of delivery of this new technology, and thought, you know what, worst case, if we pull the plug on this, we don't have to change anything, because we migrated advertisers to a digital version of the static model. And so just to simplify it, that's the way we looked at it. And everybody's extremely happy about it. The feedback from our partners is everybody sees them. The recognition is higher. We're just about to get studies from the league that I would happily share when we get those, that are saying that unattended recognition of brands is up big time with this new technology, which is the ultimate goal of our brands, right? So so this is a great job, but yeah, we still do the static change every period in the building because of the history, like in Montreal, and we're the initiator of this, by the way. We're the ones that thought about this, to switch advertisers between periods. And we're one of the best, if not the best, in the league to monetize. And we're looked at as a leader. Us, the Leafs, are the leaders in revenues and in innovation of revenue generation. And again, not necessarily because we're better than anybody else. It's because these markets, hockey is so popular. There's so many brands that want to be associated to this property.
Mm-hmm.
We had to get creative to make sure we would have value delivered to these brands. So back to my ring board, 24 positions, but I have about 50 advertisers that are on my boards because of the switches, right?
Right.
So those 50 advertisers had to be finding their value on this new digital version that had way less brands at the same time, but with way more impact. And I think we won that bet.
It's super effective. I've watched enough hockey games this season. Like, it's obviously noticeable. Why did you guys put a limit against having like some mega company, Amazon, or someone coming in and taking the entire visible section for, a bit? Were you worried that someone would come in and just monopolize all the time, like Amazon come in and buy an entire game and it's just Amazon flying around the arena the entire time? Was it just you were like the economics
of not doing that, you're saying?
Yeah.
Well, we have so many partners that have a traditional partnership deal is 3 to 5 years. So we have, as I said, maybe 50 brands that have camera visible assets.
Sure.
You can't just pull the inventory, pull the deals right from these.
Right.
So, and that's just the basic answer to your question. But I don't think it would be smart for teams to, put all their eggs in one basket and have one brand buy the whole thing. One of the challenges in partnerships, sometimes it comes and goes. And if you don't have a lot of partners, the risk is higher, right? So, and then we're in an exclusive dynamic. So you've got your exclusive car partner, which is Ford in our case. I think I mentioned that earlier. Trying to make it up. But yeah, so seriously, it's exclusive partners. So when these partners unfortunately decide to move on to new strategies, you gotta have a B plan, right? So and so if you're starting to really concentrate on, and then I don't think it's really fun for the audience. And audience is the key for everybody here. It's the fans. We have to always think about, and again, that was also part of this concentrating on migration of existing advertisers and not exploding this to animated all the time. You don't see a lot of animations that I said we could do. We don't do a lot of, because the fans have to be the first that we think about when we do anything, including advertising, and obviously the advertisers are trying to have a positive impact on fans and audiences, right?
Totally.
So that's where another reason why I think it would be boring to see the same brand over and over, even for the audiences, the fans.
From brand development to simple market executions, 54 Blue helps brands of all sizes grow with sustainability in mind. Their full stack range of services include print, fabrication, design, web, interactive, content marketing, brand consulting, creative strategy, and more. Join some of the world's largest brands and lean on 54 Blue for your next go-to-market. Visit 54blue.com for more information.
Yeah, it's interesting. I see well, I can't imagine there's not some giant Jeff Bezos-y kind of dude just going, I want to own X game and like try to do it. Is there a secondary market for this, or is it contractually not allowed? Can Ford sell their space on a secondary market directly to someone else to utilize, or is that prohibited? How do you guys, is there compliance against your partners in trading their stuff to someone else?
Yeah, excellent question. Indeed, you cannot pass the rights. So we call them pass-through rights. Sometimes we negotiate deals with pass-through rights. Example, Molson has pass-through rights with restaurants and bars, so they can use their ringboard to promote a restaurant chain that's a big partner of theirs. And to us, it was not that much of a well, it was not. Well, Molson is a huge partner. They invest a lot of money. And thirdly, the restaurants category were not exclusive. There's so many different types of restaurants, and we told them, as long as you don't do it for the categories where we do have partners, and that could change in time, right? So let's say I don't know what the name of it, but I do have the Keg as a partner, so they wouldn't do a steak restaurant, right?
Sure.
But they could do a burger place, or they could do a sort of Mexican food restaurants.
Right.
So basically that's exceptions in major partnerships, and very controlled in the way we would do it, so that we don't close the door on the eventual opportunities of selling to new categories. But then again, Jamie, because I told you earlier, we control the virtual visibility. It could be divided by broadcaster. So Amazon could decide to buy all European NHL inventory and do a huge stunt, because there are no deals in Europe right now for camera visible assets in the NHL, right? So I know, so if I was at the league level, I would probably concentrate on that. For parts of my time is to say, how can I create these very spectacular, integrations in the secondary markets, which we could call them, which is outside of the league's traditional markets, if that makes sense.
It 100% does. Now, when it comes to the consumer experience within the building, you guys have a bunch of touch points. You'd have different wall wraps and all sorts of different things that would exist within the space. Looking sort of down the path with augmented reality and all the cool new stuff that's coming out, and there's so many amazing things you can do when people are walking around with, amazing little computers in their hand. I'm working on a project right now for one of our large brands where it's augmented reality. You focus on a product and you can create these insane experiences for the consumer via their phone. So the consumer is holding their own, like, how do I explain this really good to everybody? Alex knows this well. So if you try to put technology-based things into market, they will inevitably fail. So you would know this. Your TV screens go down occasionally in your space. You'll have a TV not working, but when you put up a piece of physical signage, it never fails unless it accidentally just somehow peels off the wall. It's there, it works, its impact happened. Technology is amazing, but for any large retailer or any brand that has digital properties, it's a huge nightmare. It just can be, which is why I think the augmented reality part is amazing, because the consumer holds the technology part in their hand, and you're then just facilitating this through software and systems. So it's actually brilliant. It works amazing. For you guys, that consumer interaction in the building, and there's nothing better. If you've never been to a hockey game in Montreal, or, you know, the only one that is equal is going to New York, and going to a game in that building is amazing. But Montreal, it's fantastic. The experience in the space is so good. Are you guys focusing, like, how much do you guys focus on, or is it in your privy to focus on some of the consumer experience that happens within that space from an advertising level, consumer experience with the different premium boxes that exist? Like, you guys, I'm assuming you touch all the way down to that time period.
Two very, very important separations, I would say, in the monetization we do. One big portion is advertising assets, boards, virtual. This is purely commercial, right? The second big segment is the part that is, you know, basically fusioning the Canadians marketing and the brand's marketing. So that is led and developed mainly by our marketing team. The Canadians marketing team would think of ideas to engage the fans, and then we would try to get a brand to buy into it. Sure. And that way you control the experience, and it's the Canadians that is focused on creating value for their fans that are bringing these great ideas to brands that are exactly trying to tap into the same dynamics, right? So that's the truly what I call win-win-win. Property, brand, fans win when the three are
combined.
So one of the greatest activations we have here in Montreal, and it probably exists in all the other markets, but I really am impressed by it, is the fans taking over the central scoreboard with their phone. So you can download this app, and you basically get online in a queue, and your camera becomes the building's camera that shows the live feed on the scoreboard.
Oh my God!
So that's really fun. So everybody's trying to get their just like you in the past, you wouldn't want to be on the scoreboard, like have the camera catch your face on the scoreboard. All of a sudden, you're the one that controls the camera. Right?
How much delay do they put on that broadcast? Because there's got to be. I know Quebec good enough. Yeah. There's some real inappropriate stuff going to end up on that.
Well, there's a difference between going on the kiss cam and holding the feed, you know, on a hockey game.
Yeah. So anytime you do something that is including live and fans comes with a risk for sure. So that's very well managed by a very experimented marketing team, and indeed the delays is part of it. But you can't you can't control it all, right? You have people that would flash their chest, right? And it took them a tenth of a second, and unfortunately, you didn't have time to switch the camera. So, but most of the time, obviously, people are very collaborative, and it creates great value. So we have that. We have kiss cam is a classic everywhere, but you have another technology is basically it's a Twitter post. You do a Twitter post, hashtag the Montreal Canadiens, and we pick one of those, and you become the keg restaurant fan of the game. You get this card to the restaurant, gift card, and you get to be on the scoreboard being the Canadiens Twitter fan of the game, right? And you're reposted on the Canadiens platforms. Very easy to do and creates so much value for the brand and fans. So yeah, indeed, and then obviously you have the physical. One of the greatest innovations we did this year is what do we call it? These games where you gotta basically unlock a treasure in a room with the
an escape room kind of
escape
setup.
Room, exactly.
Yeah.
So we have the Bell escape room, and we put fans in that room 15 minutes before puck drop, and they have to get out before the game starts. And it's literally physically in the building, and fans get to do that live on screen. So we go back and forth from to see where they're at, and they're trying to escape that room and catch the start of the game. And then during the game, they would be advertised. They would be posted on the scoreboard saying if they did it or if they failed doing it, and then fans would interact with them. So that's another way to engage. Obviously, you're not touching as many people because you only have like four that actually do the experience, but you can still amplify it to the rest of the building by filming it and whatnot.
So you definitely see. Sorry, Jamie.
No, go ahead.
You definitely see the interaction with the social media and the digital advertising on television or inside the venue being like the next evolution, I would say, of leveraging and creating that additional assets, additional brand exposure, I would say. So definitely social media.
Absolutely. We've talked about TV a lot, but we all know that the kids are on the social platforms way more than traditional TV. So the challenge of the next years is to make sure we capture these audiences where they are, which is lesser on traditional TV and more on those social media platforms, to name just that portion. So to your point, Alex, we've been working very hard. The marketing here is really dynamic, and making sure we're on all of the platforms, whether it's a popular one, whether it's an upcoming one, to make sure, because and I don't want to I guess your ages, but I think we would probably be more Facebook generation than TikTok, right? And all of a sudden, my kids, in my personal experience, my 20-year-old has a Facebook that he uses just for Messenger, and my 17-year-old does not know what Facebook is, right? So, and she is on Snapchat and she's on TikTok and whatnot. So, yeah, that's a huge part of and all of these platforms have such a different culture, such a different way to deliver content, that it's quite a challenge to make sure that you're right, aligned with the expectation of the audiences. So it makes it even more complicated. Is that right? If you're on TikTok, totally different delivery than if you're on Facebook or Twitter.
But it's funny to see, like, when you look at the Osheaga Music Festival, you guys have become expert into elevating like brand experience on site, and not only on social media, but when you look at the interaction that you guys brought in music festival and branding and concessions, and just engaging the consumer with actual physical things on site, and you guys did a really good job for that.
Yeah, and I know, and it's with partners like 54 actually, and Oakley, where you were in the past, Alex. Because we can't take all the credit for this. The brands are getting better and better.
They're getting
in understanding what needs to be done to create value. Because if you have brands that are not engaged or that are not understanding that you need to be creative and invest in the experiences to really make a difference. And when we sell a sponsorship, you should consider having the same budget in activation, and sometimes 2 to 3 times the activation budget to the rights budget. In the festivals, I would say it's more important than in the Canadians world, because of all the assets we have in the Canadians world and the reach on those TVs and social medias and the recurring of the games in festivals. Like Osheaga is a 3-day event. So you want to make sure that you do it right, because if you really want to have the impact and have a return on investment, you got to make sure that you're doing it right again, because you can't miss a day out of 3. It's 32% of your investment that just went down the drain, right? So that's one part, and then the second part is the festivals are working very hard, and I said earlier we have a specialist team selling that because it is different. It is a different crowd. It is a different expectation of fans, and it is a much more complicated environment, because it is, as I like saying, it's camping. We're dropping a village for a 1-week event and then folding it, right? So that's even makes it even tougher. It's not a venue, and it's outdoors. So they do an amazing job.
And you guys already go ahead, Jamie.
For people that don't know, if you haven't been to Montreal, go. It is probably, arguably the prettiest and coolest city you can go to in North America. It is
Jamie, I think I could get you a Montreal promotion sponsorship budget.
I absolutely love it, like, to death. It is like it's a bizarre place. Palm Springs down in Southern California, they have an event almost every weekend. It's the only place that I have seen that's even close to the level of what Montreal does. But Montreal is huge. Palm Springs is this tiny little thing. But if you go down there, Main Street's shut literally every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. There's like a parade, there's Modernism Week, there's all these amazing things. Montreal has Just for Laughs, they have Osheaga, they have like on and on and on through, like, there is specifically through the warmer months, there is something all the time, and not something small. These are like North American level tourist attraction events, undeniably. Like Just for
And
Laughs
Jamie,
is
if I can add,
ridiculous.
they're free events. Like you mentioned Just for Laughs,
Yeah.
which is also part of our group, which is the biggest comedy festival in the world. So in the summertime, those are 2-week events. So you've got jazz, Just for Laughs, Francophonie, that are basically back to back into the summer. And there's a festival area right in the heart of downtown that is used specifically for all these events, and it's been created by the governments to have this infrastructure. So we're very, invested in events and free events that are driving tourism. So, and if you're from outside, then you're looking for a city to visit. Indeed, value in Montreal because of all these festivals is amazing.
It literally is over the top. Like it's, and I've been very lucky because a couple of the different companies that I've worked for have had offices there. And so I've got, I've had the opportunity to travel there a ton. So it's a really weird thing because like, let's pick all of the major things that happen in Montreal, and Montreal has inordinately more amazing things happening than almost any other city in North America, in my opinion, as far as like these free festivals and really cool things with premier talent all the time. And of course, you got to buy tickets to a bunch of these things. Like some of it is paid. But your group inordinately handles a large proponent, like a huge amount of this. So do you guys end up interacting with like the Quebec tourism community, and are you guys driving like you would be, it's your events and your facility and your properties that you have, like they're too, like they're big, and so, and because they are driving massive amounts of consumers into Montreal to come to these events, you guys have to be intertwined with the provincial government and the Montreal government that's literally running the city. How much interaction do you guys have to have with that? Do they have partial control over properties? Like, what goes on there? Because I got to imagine that there's 1,000 touch points there.
No, that's a very good question, and I'm glad you brought it up because it gives me the opportunity to mention that one of the reasons, if not the main reason why we're so big on events, is because the governments are heavily involved and invest a lot of money in all these events to make sure that they're healthy and that they happen every year. So the government level, so we could say federal, provincial, and then municipal, are all invested in most of these events, if not all of these events. So they literally become partners slash sponsors of these events. So they don't own, for most of them, if not all of them, they would support them financially, and they would expect these events to deliver on tourism. How many people are you driving out from outside? So for instance, Tourism Montreal would give you X amount of dollars related to how many people did you bring to our city, contributing to the local economy that are not local people. And then the city of Montreal would probably invest in what value are you creating for the Montrealers, right? To have them stay in Montreal and buy houses in Montreal instead of going to the suburbs. So they have marketing goals, but at the end of the day, they believe in these events and spend a lot of money. And as you know, again, if there are people listening from the U.S., Canada and Quebec especially is very socialist, more than left, and income tax levels show it. But at the end of the day, some of those dollars go back to like free education, free health system, but also,
Amazing.
culture.
Yeah.
So the governments in Canada in general are very invested in culture, and in Quebec in particularly, I think we're one of the markets where and again, it's like, is it the egg or the chicken? There's so many major events in Montreal that makes it, and I'm sorry, I shouldn't say just Montreal, I should say the whole province.
Right.
And there's a lot of events also in Quebec and in regions, but so many events here that the governments are supporting and that are creating value in return, that it really created a unique position, I would say, in this field.
I have a feeling that the events get created. So it's a chicken and egg question, because without your government, municipality helping to promote these things, your promotional assets are lower value. Because if they're not supporting the event can't have the same large infrastructure. If the large infrastructure doesn't exist, you can't have as many people. If you don't have as many people, you're not going to get Molson's to sign on for the exact same number for that event. That value will drop. So all of this participation from all these different levels is partially driving the pricing of what you can sell your inventory for. I have to imagine those things are almost impossible to separate. Big event, small event, the pricing is definitively different. The participation of the government can help change a medium-sized event into a massive event really quickly.
Yeah,
and so I've said it before. I said it on the Carl from North Face. We discussed Quebec a little bit, and it is got this crazy protectionist culture, but it's proven to be so effectively good. And if the rest of Canada, like I look at Quebec, I look at Canada as a giant, beautiful thing. And I love Canada. I'm so Canadian. It's crazy. Quebec being such a unique component of what Canada is. And it's like when people get bummed out that you can't mountain bike all over Banff National Park. It's like, no, as a professional mountain biker, of course I would love to do it, but I also don't want a billion people out there wrecking that park. I want it protected, even though it would have been in my best interest a bit, and I would have had a great time going and fucking it up, wrecking it. It's super fun, mountain biking. But you guys are doing that at a culture level, which is amazing. And sometimes it creates havoc. And Alex, there's a never ending issue with language, with provincial taxing, with all these different things. However, in my opinion, 1,000% worth it from a Canadian level. And not every Albertan would agree with that, but I definitely do, because I see the country as one large market. And you guys have been protecting your language for really officially since the 60s, 70s. Is that about right?
Yeah, I would say so. You're referring to the 101 bill, which is the first official law that was voted in the 70s. Yeah, keeping, like, for instance, companies from not using French or not having French as predominating. And so if you have a store, you're not allowed to have just an English sign up, for example, in Quebec. So indeed, you could like or not, but I'm glad that you focus more on the Canadian theme. Like we're so unique, Canada. Right? I was talking again this morning. I had the breakfast with one of the bank presidents here in Quebec, and he was saying how much money is coming from international to Canada, because this country is seen as safe, seen as stable. And the banking world is one of the best examples. It's so stable. It's only a few banks, and the government pretty much controls it. So I think you could like or not this factor of the country that has a bit more control over the bigger interests, let's say, which is maybe sometimes infringing on your individual opinions or rights, and that's a bit of what Quebec is. But it's polarizing, the fact that it's around the language in a way, and some of the positions we have in this province sometimes resonates negatively, unfortunately, outside. And I want to take this occasion to say, everybody is so proud to be Canadian, and it's always a question of a minority sometimes that is loud, and you could be sure that Quebec is a Canada lover in most a large majority of Quebecers consider themselves Canadians, and we're very proud, as you can see in my accent, to speak in both languages, right? So it's not about French; it's about being able to speak both. And as last comment on this sensitive subject, I think that every Canadian should be proud to have two languages, right?
100%. Yeah, it's diversity is, if we haven't learned anything, and whether you believe the pendulum is swung too far in diversity or not far enough, depending on what specific topic you're talking about, for sure, everyone looks at diversity as a valuable thing more today than they did even 3 years ago. And my opinion has dramatically changed. I always looked at it as a real issue with growing business within your guys' market. That being said, it's also proven itself out to protect mom and pop shops and keep that smaller retail healthy. It's allowed mom and pop shops to grow into great, strong regional things without getting just beaten down or just naturally bought up by the big guys when they get to a certain level. From a full marketplace kind of positioning, it's brilliant, and it's only just sort of recently really proven itself out, where some not all the markets exist the same way. Specifically in the sporting goods world, which I know very, very well, Quebec is probably the healthiest marketplace in North America. It just is. Like, it's got the most diversity between large players and small players. Products, it's free flow. You can get every product in. You got to comply with the language rules and all these things, but it is exceedingly healthy. Which it isn't.
You're right. There's a good mix of local and national or global, players, especially at the retail level.
It's huge.
Yeah. Right. So we have, and I don't know if it's about the culture or the fact that the big global players have a bit of a harder time getting into Quebec and cracking the code, we call it. And that, again, back to what I do for a living, is connecting brands with this community. And that's why the Canadians and all of our festivals are so popular for brands, because it gives you, a very efficient way to be relevant to people that have a culture that is different than the rest of America. And again, it's not about English Canada and French Canada. I think the Maritimes and the Western provinces are totally different, just as much as Quebec is. The language is just one thing, but California and Tennessee is as different as Quebec and Alberta.
Totally.
Right? So that's the way I look at it. And it's not, and you know what, again, this morning in our discussion, we're talking about cities. Quebec City and Montreal City, there's rivalries in the cities within the province or a state. So that's reality. But back to your point, that's diversity. And we should all embrace it, not try to decide what's right, what's wrong. It's just different. And there's no right and there's no wrong.
Well, not there, but in Alberta, Calgary is definitively better than Edmonton. So let's just get that out on the table right now.
If you're talking hockey, it's not the best timing to say.
No, I'm not talking hockey. I'm talking everything, though, just like across the board.
We're not here for the high rollers, snooty wine critics, or long-haul collectors, but we do think it's about time wine cellars turned into swoon-worthy works of art. Our experienced designers will bring your dream wine cellar to life, fitting any sized space and aesthetic requirements in your home. Our craftsmen carefully hand-build your cellar to give you a wine storage space that really feels like you. Visit themoderncellar.com for more information.
That's amazing.
That's great.
So you guys are running a giant ship, and you have tons and tons of properties. How many, and I know this is an unanswerable question, how many marketing placements do you guys have a year? What's the number?
Amount of partners?
No. individual properties that you guys can place people into. I am going to imagine with the turnover in hockey games, with digital and all these things, with actual digital marketing and all these things, like it would be hundreds and hundreds of thousands of placements. I would imagine.
Very good question. You know, you got me thinking here. First of all, I think the answer is infinite because of digital.
Right.
Digital being part of the asset now, it's infinite. But is it efficient? That's the real question. Back to virtual, we can do anything we want. Are we going to win doing a million different creatives, a million different deals, right? So what I see more and more, the paradox is we have more and more inventory, and brands are trying to be more and more, efficient in the way they reach their market. Back to Alex's point, why are brands spending so much money touching tens of thousands of people at a festival versus millions on TV? Mm-hmm. They touch them with way more effectiveness than a camera, than a TV campaign would touch, the ratio of people it reaches.
Totally.
Right. So I think, and then I don't know if COVID helped or not, but I could tell you there's a huge appetite for the fans are coming back big time, right? The events have never been so healthy. And brands, I think, recognize now that the biggest struggle we had in the last decade was digital. All the brands were about spending dollars on digital, measurable, right? And then they forgot the main point being what we do, the brand building. You don't build a brand with impressions and promotions. You build a brand with a long-term strategy. And I think the brands are back to that. And you need to use those assets to make sure that you clearly position them to reach that goal, which is different than just doing advertising campaigns.
1,000%. It's the consumer experience creates the aura of the brand. And if a brand picks or creates an event that creates an amazing consumer experience, that all overlays, and the tangible feelings that translate from that go into the brand equity, and that just becomes this greater and greater experience. F1 is a perfect example of lots and lots of brands layering themselves into something where people are so passionate that the emotional response pours directly into the branding. It just does. Like people get so invested into that kind of thing. The hockey is very obvious because you have direct merch, you have direct sales at facility, you have all of these other things. Like obviously you buy a Molson beer at that facility, it's a thing that you can get. And so I don't know, I find without the emotional component, which you just do not get from a Google ad following you around as you're surfing around online, the emotional component is so big, and that in so many instances happens really, really, really well at events, unless the event goes tragically wrong, which some have. Unless something goes crazy and the building falls down, usually you leave it having a great experience, even if your home team loses. It's still great. Yeah. Okay, Alex, do you have, I know you had a bunch of questions. What do you got? So many questions
for Hubert. This is funny because you're talking about brand experience, and we're talking about like how the evolution of social media and digital, but nothing replaces like a live event, like a live concert, like a live hockey game. And despite the fact that all the brands are trying to extend their exposure on digital, nothing is better than a live event as well. It's the same thing. We had the discussion with other guests on the show where brands are selling online, advertising online their product, but there's nothing like brick and mortar, going back to the roots of having a store selling and touching the shoe, the garment, the apparel, and so on. And same comes with live events, snowboard events, ski events, motocross events, where like you touch, you feel, you see, and you get the total brand immersion. And I think this is where like with COVID, we stretched the social media and the digital world, and now we're going back to creating that balance and understanding, like you're saying earlier, the ROI and the return on investment, and understanding how you invest in concerts and festivals, and how brands touch like that type of consumer directly towards, like, depending of if they want to go that route, or if they go like specifically to more generic advertising to their brand. But it's great to see the evolution, like I remember a few years back, early 2010 maybe, after the Vancouver games, doing some board and digital board advertising, with the Montreal Canadiens, and now we're like 15 years from there, and the evolution is just amazing. It became like a monster, for you guys to handle as well.
Yeah, and I remember when you would think it came to mind when you were talking to Alex, remember in the past when you were a partner at the Osheaga, and we were talking about doing all these white tents, and you called it the Roman village, but like in the cartoon books of Asterix.
Yeah.
The Roman village, which was not necessarily the way to go, right? But 10, 15 years ago, maybe, from a partnership standpoint, we were not as evolved. And again, having our sports perspective brought to the entertainment / festival, realized that it's a total different game.
Yeah.
And so that's an example of things that evolved to the very customized, huge fan activations we do now. And again, not taking all the credit, brands got very, very involved and spent tons of money activating right.
But it comes down, like we said, talking about the festival, is as marketers is understanding the brand itself, and the brand perception to consumer. But also, you guys, for example, did such a great job with Osheaga, with the artist brand experience. Like you guys invested a lot, like behind the scene for the artist, and same thing goes for the pro teams. Like hockey, you gotta sell the environment, you gotta sell the province, the country.
On that part, and that gives me the opportunity to mention our vice president of content, who's Nick Farkas, who is the creator of Osheaga. And I talked about over 15 years of existence. The first few years were very risky. Obviously, this is a lot of money invested in a live event that's outdoors, and but he won his bet on creating this huge brand. And one of the first things that was extremely important to Nick was making sure that the artists that were making the commitment to come play in Montreal in an outdoor event would really have a unique experience, and the word of mouth in the artist community would be, you got to go play at Osheaga. We're having a ball up there, right? And that's another thing that we've done with Nick's leadership extremely well.
It's interesting, and you touch on something that I don't think a lot of people talk about ever. Is there's a thing that happens when you're an athlete or an artist, and I've seen this on a couple different levels, and I've been in some large bike races and different types of athletic things. And Alex, you'll know this for sure, as you're a pro motocross racer, when you show up as a pro to an event that is really well dressed, super organized, partners are involved, and everyone is feeling good on that level. Translated down to the athlete, it's 1,000 times better. It's like it's actually not even describable. It's like it's night and day. It could be the exact same performance that you're going to put in. It's going to be all of these things, but the difference, like everyone is a little kid inside and wants to walk into the coolest looking professional thing. Doesn't matter if you're Sidney Crosby or if you're Jamie Kalon. And when you walk in, if you get that experience, it affects everybody all the way through. Sidney, I'm sure, goes back to being little kid Sidney and walks in and just like, I can't believe this. When you talk to any large performance band, and they can't talk enough about staring into the sea and hearing their song being sung back to them by 22,000 people, or 50,000 people, or 100,000 people. Everyone's a little kid inside. And so the work that you do in setting everything up super professionally, getting all these people involved, elevates everything all the way, including the consumer's experience, including the performers or athletes' experience. It's a really interesting thing. And I think people undervalue how it affects the performer. It's massive.
Well, I'm glad to hear it because, lots of efforts is put into that for sure. And at the team level and the NHL, again, easier, right? You've got a venue, you've got a locker room, you've got, right? So, but in the entertainment or motocross event is the same. It comes and goes. Like you just go to a course and you do an event for a weekend, a much bigger challenge to make sure that all these, what we could call details, are taken care of. And that means a lot of money and people invested at the production level. And if you're not a big player and you don't have the government supports as we have here, tough to do, right? So it's easier said than done to deliver that experience if you do not have the resources, which is tough for event producers.
Yeah, smaller markets are they're handcuffed with just not having that economic thing. You could not do that same thing in Calgary. We just don't have the provincial support to pump up individual things. We get some of it, obviously, but not nearly to the level that you guys do.
We've got an amazing event that's on my bucket list, which is what's it called? I just have a blank now.
In Calgary?
Yeah, it's
the Stampede.
Yeah, of course.
It's the Stampede. How do you forget?
It's a small event.
It's a small event.
I was going to say, this is my bucket list. I want to go see the Stampede.
Come to the Stampede. You can stay out at my ranch, and I'll look after you for the week. And when I come to Quebec, I'll pick my days really carefully to what event I'm going to go to.
Absolutely.
But feel free. I would love to host you for the Stampede.
I had Saddle Dome in my mind instead of Stampede. That's why I was trying.
Yeah, hopefully that Saddle Dome gets torn down and we get a new building here. It's such a strange dynamic the way hockey, like how large stadiums get built and how much in Canada, like a lot of it.
You had a new stadium project in Calgary that went through.
Yeah, it's up and down and up and down and up and down. There's just a push and pull between the economics between the hockey club and the province and the city.
Oh, really? Oh.
Yeah. Everybody wants it. Saddle Dome, if anybody hasn't seen it, is literally shaped like a saddle. It was made for the 1988 Olympics. And all the stuff that was built for the 88 Olympics was built like 83, 84, which if anyone understands construction and techniques and stuff, that was not the shining example of a time when people were making great engineering choices and building great structures and stuff. So a lot of it's kind of crumbled, which is part of it. And the Saddle Dome, I believe, is actually the oldest NHL arena left in existence. Like that's it. It's the worst. In Edmonton, even though they're terrible in Edmonton, they have an amazing new arena and it's great up there. In Marketeers Clubhouse, I do a thing, Hubert and Alex, where it's called the Cool Confessional, where basically I'm giving away everything that I kind of keep quiet, because I believe a man who has given away all his secrets cannot be bugged, can't be challenged. You walk out on the street and someone goes, "You like this?" It's like, yeah, I like that. I've told literally everybody all my secrets. Today on this, I would have loved to have done, I cry every time I'm at a hockey game when the Canadian anthem gets sung. I've already given that up. I cry every time. And I cry twice as hard when I'm in the US and it happens, because it's just my national pride like blows out of me. But today, on part of the topic that we were discussing, I would have said, if anybody asked me what my favorite sporting thing that I've ever done was, there would be a lot of different bike races and things that I've done really well in and done that, but it's not that. It was an event that Oakley put on at the Saddle Dome, where we all got fully dressed. We all got taken care of very, very well. We all got intro onto the ice. And then we got to sit there and play hockey for hour and a half with full cameras and everything. And as a person who is terrible at hockey but loves sport, that experience to me was the single greatest experience I've had in sport. And I wouldn't admit that to a ton of people because I would want it to be more centralized around some sort of egotistical sport thing that I've won, but it wasn't. It was, and Alex, I think you arranged, was it you that arranged that?
Yep.
I'm pretty sure it was.
With one of our retailer accounts.
Yeah, it was my absolute favorite experience I've ever had in athletics. And it was like, it's just like 2-hour thing, but just being able to actually change in the proper rooms, skate out on the ice, full pro style was like, it was so like, I didn't think it would affect me, and it 100% did. It was
I think you did
amazing.
the same in Montreal, didn't you, Alex?
But that's what I wanted to say, Jamie. You don't know, but Hubert has been involved in the process of organizing this thing. We've tested this execution, in Montreal, and Hubert was one of the pillar, I would say, to help us organize and make sure we had the perfect brand experience, for anyone.
Yeah, again, Alex and Oakley getting us out of our comfort zone. What do you mean you're not just going to buy a ring board?
Yeah,
so
well,
we did that great, that great experience indeed, and that's when you guys were more in the visors, right? Oakley was in the hockey visors back then as well as
yeah, they still go quite hard with that between hockey and NFL. I think Oakley logo gets more like actual eyes on it than any brand probably on the planet, especially because of the NFL. It's insane. It's literally on everybody. That's my cool confessional of the day. Alex, do you have anything for me?
Yeah, well, following on the same step, I can tell you that I had the privilege, I would say, to play hockey at the Bell Center many times with Hubert and staff from Evenko. But every single time, and we play really early, it's 6:30 or after games, and yeah, so it's really, really early. And thank God I got to drive 3 hours in traffic to Montreal in the morning. But every single time I step on the ice, and I feel so privileged. I always have a big tear in my eye, and I almost cry every time. Every time I go on the ice, and it's all friends, and we're privileged, to work in this industry, but for me, it's I go back and I go like, oh boy, I'm on the Montreal Canadian, ice, and it's like pitching a ball, on the Yankee Stadium. It's
it is literally priceless. That we're such good Canadians that those are so impactful to us. we're so good. We love hockey. Awesome, Hubert. Do you have anything that you'd like to strip off of your soul that you don't need to carry with you anymore? Just something small. Doesn't have to be huge.
Well, you know what, I was thinking there's something that I could say that would be as interesting. First of all, when I hear you guys, it makes me realize, and I do realize it every day, that I'm privileged to be in that industry and working with such popular and dynamic brands, and with an organization that has the means to deliver. So what I could talk about as being a very unique experience is because I've been in this industry for so long, I have a lot of those, and the ones that I like the most is just little stories of things I've witnessed that I think were historical, and best example comes in my baseball years at the Expos. Is I had the chance to witness the first and probably only pitcher to throw in the same inning from both arms, right? So he was considered a pitcher that was able to pitch from both left and right hands. So he did that in one inning in Montreal, and I was there working there, and I saw that. And I went to him after the game, and I had him sign a ball from both hands. So I have a ball at home from that pitcher that's signed from his right hand and from his left hand on the same ball, right? So
wow,
that would be an example of things that I did, and over a beer, guys, we could talk about others, but I could open my little suitcase of souvenirs, including that, and talk to you about these stories, right? So again, privileged to be in this industry, and and they're playing hockey on the ice, which is something we haven't done in a while, Alex. We have to get back doing that. Like after pandemic, we didn't really get back to organizing those the way we did before. So it's make me realize that we've got to get to that.
I love it. I think people need to, like, there's so much room. Doesn't matter what kind of cool job you have, any of these things. Like, you've got a trunk of tokens and you're a fan of so many things. I'm a fan. I love hockey. I love sport in general. Is so amazing to see. And I'm unabashedly a fan of things. And I think people need to be less cool about not being effective. Like I'm affected when I see things, and I think it's so important. It doesn't matter who you are. Like, I listen to a bunch of Sirius satellite radio, and every once in a while I tune into the U2 X station, and Bono's got a thing on there where it's his letters to people that he's a fan of. And I find it, like, it's so interesting that you can be literally an icon beyond icon, but still be such a fan of people who aren't at that same level. But he's like, he can't help but appreciate so many things that are out there because he has seen so much, and he lets himself be a fan. And I love that. And I think it's huge, and I think it's admirable, and makes me like him even more, strangely. So yeah, anyways.
Jamie, I can tell you a story actually from Osheaga, and relates directly to that. And it was, and I think there's videos from that. I don't know if you remember when Chuck Hughes cooked something for Cypress Hill singer, and when you look at it, you couldn't tell who was the groupiest of the other. You know, like who was more fan of the other, and it was like so funny. That was like a great experience.
Well, you mentioned Chuck Hughes when you were talking about those hockey games, and I know Chuck is popular in the U.S., so he's one of the greatest chefs that's actually doing the cooking in our artist world at Osheaga. One of the highlights of Osheaga is having Chuck Hughes, and now it evolved to him and his friends. So all the other great chefs of Montreal gather with Chuck and cook all weekend and party at the event with artists. And it became such
That's
a
amazing.
great experience for them and for us, having the chance to witness.
I love it. I love it. I've learned a ton today, Hubert. Thank you. I've got a better understanding of the challenges you guys have. Congrats on an amazing 35-year run as an independent, and even more congrats on being so good that you're going internal and doing it at a level where you may potentially even be able to elevate to a spot where you've never been able to elevate. Let's hope that you guys can take this opportunity and crush it, because I only assume that that's what's in the plans. So I can't wait to see how that unfolds. Congrats. I'd love to have you back at some point to talk about really how the differences between being external and then going internal are. I think there's an entire conversation from a marketing level on where you found freedoms and where you found constraints, and where the opportunities then sort of poked up. Because I think that's going to be a nonstop adventure for you for the next couple of years. So good luck. I think it's going to be great, and enjoy. Alex, thank you for joining in and lining up this fantastic conversation so that I can understand how these large promotional things actually function and work. Because, to be honest, like I said, it was a bit of a mystery to me. Still is a little bit, but I'll watch it again and hopefully learn a little more. Yeah. Everyone else, thanks soon. Thanks a lot.